Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Now enjoy the Practical Guitarist podcast.
Hello, Jim.
Hello, David.
We know what we're talking tonight, right? We know what we're talking about.
We're gonna talk about money.
We're gonna talk about we are gonna talk about money. It's one of the things we're gonna talk about.
And value.
I'm looking for my blower here. I don't think I need it. I don't think there's something on the camera this time. It just looked like there might have been, but it's probably on my screen. I haven't wiped down my monitors in probably 2 weeks, so there's probably something on them.
Yeah.
So, since we didn't address this because some things happened and we didn't get to record last week, let's talk about the golden elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah. So there's Pearl. Pearl is back. So I did a separate video for those who want to check it out and
Right.
other podcast listeners, but haven't gone to YouTube. So I'll go a quick rundown. Pearl was my number one from around 2016 to around 2018. I played Pearl almost exclusively while I was in a band called Retrosonic, and I love the guitar. Unfortunately, I went through some things. I did some stuff. I went through some things. And I'm not proud of how I handled my feelings or my thoughts, but I sold Pearl. I bought, if you remember, I bought a CE and then I bought some other stuff, and that was a move in the downward direction.
You went through some weird changes there, and it was pretty obvious to me. I was like, if you recall, and I believe it's on an episode where I was like, "The hell is that?" And then you're like, "Oh, it's a PRC," and I'm like, "Why did you do that?" And that was about the same time that you sold your DSL to get the using Kettner and all that stuff too. So
so many things, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, but it was reasons that weren't related to music, and I needed to be able to sort those things, and I didn't. Anyway, I was at Guitar Center the other day, a few days ago now, and Pearl was hanging on the shelf, or hanging from the wall. And I said, "Is that the same one?" So I took a picture of the serial number, came home, verified it, and you said, "What are you waiting for?" That was you that said,
Mr. Practical,
why are you not out there and having already bought it? And I said, well, I've already got a number one right there, my amber one. And I love that amber one. I really do. And you said, no, you love that guitar. Go get it.
Doesn't matter
Sell
whether
the
you love the amber
DC.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Go got it.
I don't even think we talked about the DC on the show yet. I know we may.
No.
I think we did. No, I think we.
No,
we didn't.
We didn't have a chance. No. So I'll talk about that next. You said sell the red one. Go get that one.
Yeah.
And I did, but I want to talk about the DC later because that really kind of falls into what all these guitars are going to fall into what we're going to talk about tonight. At least some of it. And so what I did, hold on, I got to be like, those people that talk away from the camera. It's like, I'm talking to no one.
Send me some snapshots. I'll snap them over the episode. It's fine.
That's douchey. But yeah, and so what I did was I said, okay, well, I need to be able to get my guitar. So I did. I came up with some money and went and got it. Not proud of what I had to do to get it, but my lips are chapped, and I've got plenty of preparation H. So
wow.
No, but no, but I'm glad to say that Pearl is home and is back with the family. Actually, she's with more family than she's ever been with. So back with the DSL, plugged into the DSL. And then when I got it home, we'll talk a little bit. So when she came home, I plugged her in because I didn't have time. I went there. It was closing. I said, I just want to take it home. Just taking it home. So I bought it. I took it home, plugged her in, fired up the DSL, or actually, I fired up the Twin Reverb, pulled and pushed all the knobs, and nothing happened. No changes at all. And I was like, "What the hell's going on?" So I went and I opened it up, found the end of an input jack. Because when I went to plug it in, I was like, "Wow, this is hard to do." And then, beep, and then I heard like a jangle, like when you drop a pick into an acoustic. And I said, "That's kind of weird." And come to find out, it was the very little tip of an input jack. Um, so apparently those do fall off. I mean, not all the time, but they do fall
Yeah,
off.
those plugs are a lot of times, and it depends on the cable end. They do break.
Yeah, and of course, probably the quality. And I'm not gonna speak to the quality of the cable because I don't know. But
I think you and I are both thinking the same thing. We suspect we know where that cable came from.
yeah, yeah, we
So
do. And so I went back and I brought her in and I said, "Look, this is what's going on." I pulled the cable. I still couldn't get any changes, but I did clean her out. I did use some contact cleaner, which is down here. That's why I'm pointing down. Um, and now, and then the tech plugs it in, and she's ringing like a bell. Everything's working fine. Pulling, pushing this pots, pushing it, pulling it. All four pots, all four connections. Turning the knobs, running everything. It's working fine. I'm like, okay, never mind. Felt like a heel. Bring it home. So here's what happened. Uh, Somebody had bumped one of the knobs on my Fender Twin, and so all the tone that should have expecting was gone because the Twin wasn't set up correctly, not because of anything else. And so,
that is the most hysterical part of this story. I actually did not know that until just now, and I'm about to lose
yeah,
it.
I haven't shared that with anybody yet. So this is the first time that I'm sharing it. I didn't even tell them. I was like, I'm not telling them. This is effing embarrassing.
To your credit, I have had problems like that with my pedal board where like a cable is like half out of something because of the way I grabbed it or whatever. And you're like, what the hell? What's broke? And you're tracing down all this stuff. And I did that for like 45 minutes the other day, only to find out that my reverb pedal, the cable was half out. Oh, I was so mad. I was so mad.
Yeah.
I was like, what would I have done if that was a gig? So now the first thing I do when my pedal board doesn't work properly is to check all the cables. Just make sure they're all inserted.
Yeah. Well, she ran great. So then what I did, actually it was the other way around. The tone was all the way up. And so what happened was there was nowhere to get out of it. You know what I mean?
You couldn't roll it down.
And yeah, I couldn't roll it down. So it was the bass tone. And you know how with bass tone and Fender, the last thing you need to do is turn it all the way up. Especially a closed back cabinet, 2x12. That was the last thing it needed. And so I thought it was funny. I want to talk about that with a tone thing later as we go into the episode. I want to talk about the DC later as we go into the episode because the double cut, you can see right there.
I just want to share a little bit of my story about the gold
Sure.
Les Paul. So, it's not so the one he's got. It's not a traditional gold top. It's the pearl, and they only made like 200 of them.
Yeah,
the original run was supposed to be like 175, but they made a few more. And I didn't know anything about these guitars until I saw yours, Jim. And so I was like, oh, big deal, whatever. I watched the Greg Koch video, and I'm like, these are unique. They don't sound the same as everything else. But I remember, like, when you were trying to get a Les Paul after I think you'd sold the CE already, and you were trying to hunt one down. And you were working at Guitar Center, and you tried to hunt down the only other Gold Pearl Les Paul that was in their system. And you ordered it in, and it had a big scratch in it, so you rejected it. Yep. And I remember that, and I was like, that sucks. But I knew, dude, when you told me you found one, you sent me the pictures, I knew it was yours because I'm like, there's only 200 of them. How many more of them could there be in the Virginia Beach area? Like
exactly.
There was no way in hell. So that's why I told you, I was like, just go down and get it because you're going to regret it if you don't. And
That's right.
you were freaking out about what was wrong with the guitar and whatever. And I'm like, dude, they're minor problems. I'm like, you could pay to have it fixed. They're minor problems. I said, even if it sits in a case while you wait for it to get repaired for months, you will thank yourself later. And that's mostly because of my situation with this thing. So when I sold this, and I sold the big pedal board that this belonged on, and I sold basically my soul to get a Helix, I sold this guy because I was like, oh, the Helix already does this. And you'll notice I have the Mooer button toppers on this, but
Yep.
I sold that, and I kicked myself like 6 months down the road, not even a year down the road, because I'm like, man, it would be really nice to go to a gig and not have to take the whole damn Helix, and especially if I'm just need an amp model, right? And that thing sounds so good that for like the entire time I ditched it, I was looking at the amp one, and I was looking at all these other things. I'm like, I wonder if it'll sound like that. And it just dawned on me when it's like, I should have never sold that. And I looked for like a year at, maybe I'll find one used. It's not going to be horribly expensive. And that never
Yep.
happened. So it ended up being me just like accepting that it was gone. And then I reached out to the guy and I got it back. And I felt so fortunate, so lucky. Like that's probably outside of the guitar that's sitting over there, which is my my S500.
Yep.
Outside of that guitar, like this is probably my prized possession.
Right.
Maybe my amp over that, but
Right.
just because of the story that goes along with it, and the fact that like these aren't common. Not everybody
No.
and their mother has an ethos,
That's right.
just because of what it is. I mean, it's a $650 overdrive pedal, which I know I talk about it every time it comes up. Oh, it's so expensive. It's that is like the stupid part about it. People shouldn't own this thing. And here's my segue, Jim. So what we want to talk about tonight, at least my part of the show, is really expensive stuff and the longevity of really expensive stuff in a market that's going to be changing probably this year.
Yep.
So as you know, I think everybody who listens to the show probably also realizes that, COVID is starting to wind down. I don't want to belay or signal the death knell. We don't know what's actually happening, but we do know that people are getting vaccinated, and we know that life is starting to return to normal for many folks, and it's going to start returning to normal for everybody. I think I had not gotten my shot when we did the last episode that's going to air this Wednesday, but I have now, and so have you, Jim. I think you
I'm
might
getting
have
my second shot Tuesday.
right.
So by the time the episode airs that you're putting out, I will have had my shot, and I may or may not be convalescing.
Right.
I have been told to prepare to take a day off. So
Yeah. So the point is that with all of the things that have gone on with COVID, we've all got stimulus checks. Most of us, the vast majority of probably our listeners, have received some sort of stimulus check along the path.
Yep.
And that prompted this gigantic boom in the industry. Now, even before COVID, the economy was doing pretty well. People had money. And so you could see companies releasing pedals and guitars that were getting increasingly more expensive. And not necessarily more expensive with a purpose. And I'm not just talking about boutique companies. I'm saying everybody was getting in on it. Was it Headrush came out with their Looper board? It's like $800 or $900 list. I'm trying to think what some of the other big ticket options from like major companies have been, but like Boss just did the Tone Bender, which was like $350 each. If you were lucky enough to get one.
Let's see. Line 6 also did the XL version of the Stomp.
Yeah, the Stomp XL,
right?
which is like, what is it? That thing's $750, I think, or $800.
Yeah, like almost $800 or $800.
Yeah. Even in the guitar, like the guitar focus side of it, like Squire's now pushing up into the $500-$600 bracket, and Now Fender is, got some guitars that are above 2,000, which was something that hadn't happened when we started the show.
Yep.
PRS core models are now pushing $3,500. The
Yeah.
only brand, ironically, that's actually kind of gone down in price has been Gibson, but they
Yeah.
had a banner year. They're selling out everywhere. Which, when you posted on your personal Facebook about their sale this week, I laughed. I go, if my store had any in stock.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We've got 5, 6. You saw the pictures.
You can put anything
Um,
on sale if you don't have any.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I get the feeling we're gonna see a clear out for a reason. Um, they Guitar Center is also those who may be looking into the Helix. I didn't share this. Guitar Center across the country are selling all of the display Helixes for like huge discounts. We're talking like $1,000. And so you're talking about a $600 discount on
Yeah,
a
that's
you know
summer.
on
That's
that thing,
summer release
right?
season's coming up.
That means that we're gonna I'm pretty sure. And you can go into your Guitar Center, and even if they don't have one, they can source one. And as long as you're okay with a floor model, you can get one.
Yeah,
So and
I
remember this, even if you buy a floor model, if there's something wrong with it, Line 6 will back it up. You will get a replacement, which means you might wind up with a brand new one, even if you do get a effed up floor model.
I
So
just
just
I
saying.
just think it's wild and it's interesting that that's happening because we're getting close to the summer release season, and it makes you wonder if there's not a new one coming.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I'm thinking.
I do not have any insider knowledge, so just be very
No.
clear to our listeners. I'm not saying
No, but
Helix
that's
has a new one coming out.
typical, right? That's typical behavior is to do blowouts. Now, the Gibson blowout that is not just Gibson. That's
No,
across. This is Guitarathon. They pick colors that may not be hugely popular. They pick, Guitar Center does this, and this is what I will tell you. You being the customer, if you hear this before Guitarathon is done, these prices, I know I have never told you what my employee discounts are. These prices are really close to employee discount. These are really, really good prices when I'm looking at 'em. And that's across the board. That's Fender, Gibson, D'Angelico, uh, ESP, LTD, Schecter, right down to some of the picks and strings, man. Guitarathon is a great time to go get some great prices if you're even looking right now.
yeah. I mean,
But
I would never encourage anybody to take advantage of a sale if you're not looking.
right. Don't go nuts because but the other side of it, and I wanna get to what you were just talking about, right now, you can buy a brand new Les Paul for less than what people are selling them used right now. That's that's stellar. I mean, you're talking
What
a
is it?
used
What is it? What is the standard going for?
right now, a used standard, one of the new ones, is going for anywhere between some people are asking literally new price because nobody
Well,
has
I'm
them,
just saying,
but
a Guitarathon, what is it going for?
19.99, some of them.
Yeah,
That's $500, literally $500 off to the penny.
yeah.
$500.
Makes me wonder if they're not going to be launching a bunch of new Les
Well, it's
Paul
only
models and
certain ones.
colors.
It's like yeah, I get the feeling we're gonna get some colors. At least maybe some because remember they wanted to stick to that. I think they might get like maybe there'll be another burst. The bursts are very popular. Um, maybe after people saw my Amber
Of
one,
course,
they
they're
want to
popular. Yeah, of course, they're popular. You can't buy any others.
yeah, well,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
and so yeah, that's where we're headed in that direction. Like you said, let me let you finish. Uh, so you were talking about this banner year, and I want to dovetail off that when you get done. So you're
Yeah.
talking about
So
the banner year.
we have this banner year. We have prices creeping up on stuff, and we sort of know that this is all being driven by the fact that there was this COVID payout taxes. People have gas money that they're not spending right now, and that they're leveraging that against buying hobby stuff. And
Yep.
so guitar took off last year. You couldn't get anything. I mean, I'm still waiting on my Fillmore to show up, um, and that's largely driven by some other things. But basically they were in demand. So at the end of all of this, like, I think we're going to have an economic downturn, and I want to try not to get into the super political side of this. But number one, we're all going to have to pay back taxes. It's going to happen. The money that we have been given out as part of our stimulus, right, has to come from somewhere, and I don't foresee the government um, doing a complete about face and taxing the rich, pay for the stimulus for everybody else, um, because they would be taxing themselves. Um, and my biggest so that's only part of it. Actually, the bigger concern I have is the housing market, right? So we know the housing market caused the downturn in 2009. If you can remember what the downturn in 2009 was like for the guitar industry, it was a wasteland. Everybody was buying cheap stuff. You couldn't afford to buy anything else. And a lot of companies, so Gibson was the only one that did the opposite trajectory where they went up in price, but everybody else tried to stay the same. Nobody was trying to increase prices. They actually almost the whole line, like a lot of companies I can think of, kept their prices stable for about 4 years, where they didn't have an increase at all. So the reason why I bring this up is because there's been all this rent abatement as part of COVID because people can't make their house payment, and there's huge unemployment in major cities. So there's this big fear, which I have, is that if the government doesn't do something about the rent abatement problem, i.e., either help those people with their mortgage or what, we're going to end up in a real world of shit financially. We're going to have another 2009 on our hands. And the biggest concern that I have is that even if the government does do something like step in and say, okay, so you only have to pay 30% of what you owe, you're still going to have foreclosures. It just won't be as severe, but that means increased taxes for everybody. So there's less money to spend on this kind of equipment. So therefore, the gear industry is going to have to change its focus. So I'm not saying that companies are going to go under. Some will. I mean, that's what happens. Like I could see. So Vemoram is the absolute worst example for this, but I will pick on Vemoram because we all know Vemoram makes really expensive stuff. So with the Vemoram Jan Ray, I think it's what, like $450 for an overdrive pedal. And I can't comment on whether it's good or bad, but I can tell you that's expensive. And I can tell you that like the Ethos is expensive. And these are small shops. And they don't really offer inexpensive options. So if you go back to a marketplace where brands like Keeley and Wampler are rocking the day because they're still sitting at $179 versus your $400 overdrive, it's going to be a really tough market for you to exist in. And the companies that are like Vemoram that don't have that loyal fan base, like a Chase Bliss, for example, are really going to struggle to get by. Not everybody's going to come out of COVID ahead. Like I've been fortunate enough to, so it's just a matter of like, when are we going to pay it back and how does that happen? And how that affects our market. But I'm just concerned because we could have like some real economic fallout that hits these companies. Jim, you said you wanted to dovetail into some stuff. I think that's a good place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the piper has to be paid. And I wanted to dovetail this. So speaking to what you're talking about, even if let's not even worry, let's not even in my portion of this discuss part that has to be paid out. Let's talk about this. So when people are given a windfall of cash, and this last payment was incredible. I mean, let's look at some of the numbers. If you were a family of two,
I can't remember the government giving me like $4,000 like they did this last time. That was pretty crazy.
It's crazy. So, in that, okay, where a person gets that kind of money, we're seeing, because I know I see it myself on a daily basis on Twitter and Facebook, is people sharing, look at my new insert very expensive guitar here. And it's my first guitar, you know?
I saw
Um,
a guy in the Mesa Boogie owners group saying, "I've never bought an amplifier before. Which Mesa Boogie should I buy?"
yep, yep. And hey, if you can afford to do that, that's
I mean,
fantastic.
I mean, here's the reality of that though. It's like I have a feeling, and this is me being judgmental, but there's a lot of very poor financial planning going on.
Yeah, and um, some people, and I'm not going to say that these are the people to which we're referring, but some people do have a tendency to spend um more than they should. And even though they have like all this back stuff, when they get this windfall, they're like, yeah, that back stuff is going to be there tomorrow. I'm going to take this and I'm going to buy a boat, or I'm going to buy, you know, I'm going to buy a guitar and an amp.
Well,
And
I've been vocal and willing to admit I mean I'm in debt. I have debt. I got my money. It went in the bank, and it did enable me to make some purchases this year where I could do it not out of fear, because like I knew I had money to back it up, but I was like, I normally would not take those positions because it was like I don't know what's gonna happen, and I can't risk anything right now.
yeah,
And that there's a lot to say for that, right? Like I'm sure other people had those similar situations happening where they were kind of sitting there going, well, I could buy that guitar. Like I actually have the cash to do it, and then I've got the stimulus check that's going directly into savings as a pad, or and that's the way I looked at it. Was like put it in my savings account, and it could be rainy day money. If something happens, then I have money to fall back on. Which because I was concerned about my career this year. Um, so I get that, right? I mean, that it is what it is. People make silly mistakes, and sometimes people make really informed ones. Um, and that's fine. Actually, I think maybe an more interesting way to look at it and think about Jim is talking about the used market. So right now, because the demand is like through the roof for everything, and you can't get anything new. I mean, there's like a 25% chance that something you order right now is going to be out of stock. So I think a lot of people, because there's not a huge demand on this inventory. People seem to think that like when you order a pedal from Sweetwater that they have 20 in stock. They might have 5 or 10, or not 200. And so they sell through, right? And then you order and they don't have it, and then you're like, well, that's weird. And in this case, like that's created a used market where it's a seller's market. I mean, I saw some guy selling a Mark V 35 for like $100 under new, and he got what he wanted for it. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell world are we in right now? And
it's
that's the fun money thing. Like people are
and
willing to do stupid stuff like that.
that speaks directly to a knee jerk response of I have money in my pocket, I need to spend it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks directly to what I was just saying, that there is no way to react for some people than to have, oh, I've got, say, $2,500, whatever, in my pocket right now, and that thing is $2,500, and I wanted to buy a new one, I can't, I'm gonna buy that one. And I wanna go one step further. The fact that that one that's $2,500 is on sale speaks to also that person that got it wasn't all that they thought it was gonna be and put it on the market. Um,
Or they've had it and they've seen the prices go up and they've seen what other people have gotten for it, and they're like, it's a
yep,
lot of money sitting over in that corner. And
right.
I get so like for my example, when I saw that, I was like, geez, I could sell my Mark 525 and I could buy a new one, when this is all over for basically the same
Yeah,
amount of money I paid for it. And mine, so like think about it from this perspective. Mine, I paid I think $1,350 for it, and they're now $1,750. So if I sold mine used right now and got 16 for it, right? Then I'm actually pocketing $200
Yeah.
and I could buy a new one. I'm out a couple $100, but at the end of the day, like I got my money out of this one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
I do. I
it's a
do.
strange situation to be in to think about that. But like
Yeah.
that's an issue right here. We're at the point where things are so inflated that you can like cash out
That's right.
and potentially get into a situation where when you buy it back used later, you're gonna end up with more money. Um,
Yeah. Cash me outside. I
no,
mean,
no,
the fact is, when you look at it, um, uh, it's it's actually it's funny on one hand, and it's a little bit scary on the other, because what's gonna happen, and it's eventually gonna happen, this is all gonna crumble for at least a short time, and you have to ride it out, you being the person.
when when
Eh,
when the Piper comes, that used market is gonna be peanuts. You
that's
will be
right,
able to clean up.
because when the piper comes calling, the people that bought stuff they really couldn't afford in the first place are gonna dump those on the market so fast your head'll spin,
Well,
and that's gonna drive prices of especially used gear. And when the prices of used gear goes like this, then the price of the new gear is either gonna stay the same or possibly dip, because what's gotta happen is the new gear is gonna do what it did before. It's gonna sit because there's all this used stuff that a lot of it is really not used. It's just something somebody got at
right.
a whim, and it went past the 45-day return policy.
And actually, so there's a couple other points I wanted to make off this, and this is just about the economics of the used market and what I've seen in my lifetime. So I can remember when people were like pensive about eBay and selling equipment like gear on eBay, and I was in high school when all this was going on, so I didn't buy anything off eBay because I didn't have a credit card. Um, but I can remember like surfing eBay and looking at gear and seeing the prices be like way lower percentage wise than they are now, which is like when somebody and I have people obviously we've talked about Strymon on the show before. Strymon's the biggest culprit for this, but Strymon is the hype brand. Okay,
Yep.
whether you like Strymon or not makes no difference. There's so much hype behind this, guys. Even if you put up a Strymon pedal that's been through a war and you're not really even sure it's going to work, you're going to get like $5 or $10 under new for it, and that's just absolutely psychotic. And I've seen I people won't even list it for less than that, and they don't want to even make an offer on it. I mean, it's like, and it's I call this the reverb effect. So when reverb happened and there was like the centralized shopping experience with low cost, low fees, it created a really dynamic market that was very, very much based on supply and demand. Which before, when you were buying from mom and pops, wasn't supply and demand. It was what did I see? What did I run into? Right? It was, and it's like, well, what am I willing to pay for that? So it was a little less aggressive. I want to say, unless it was something like a '59 Les Paul, but I mean, like a standard Strat that was bought like 3 years ago could have been purchased for a decent amount of money. I bought an American Standard Strat for $450. I mean, I know other people who bought American Standards for 350, 400, $450 all day long when they were, and at that time they were only $800 new. So that's 50%. You can't touch anything for 50% of new anymore. Nothing. And that is probably like that's a really good example because that's a common item. Like that's something you would think 50% of new would be normal, but no. I mean, an American-made Stratocaster, and I say American-made because people know which models those are. I don't. I don't pay attention to them. But you go look right now, and I think they're 1,200 now. I think Jim for the American-made model, and yeah, I guarantee you, before COVID, they were $1,000 used, $200 under new. Why? Because demand is up, and people can watch the market on Reverb. They can trace it. It's not like eBay where if your search terms are wrong, you're going to pull in a bunch of other crap. And once people have visibility to that market, I mean, the fact that Guitar Center and your local mom and pops use eBay and Reverb as a way to price gear, they look at the sold listings, should tell you, that's kind of messed up because it created this market, this stock market for used gear. It's not really what it's worth anymore. It's what somebody, and I know people say, well, something's worth what somebody is willing to pay. And that's true. But the fact is, you've now got an audience, so there's a lot more people willing to pay a lot more. And it kind of sucks. Like, it sucks for the consumer. It doesn't suck if you're the seller, obviously. But it sucks because for people getting into the instrument, that used to be a way to get good gear. And now it's like, I mean, I honestly, so I still kind of err on the side of buying used gear because I think there's a better value there. But as a a player who knows what I want, there ain't much I can get used that's gonna fit my needs. So I end up buying new. I pay the new tax. It sucks, and I hate it, but I do it.
We talked about this before. I mean, when you get to the point that we discussed, what was it, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we had the same discussion. And the fact is that when we had this discussion, we were like, buy used, you'll save a ton of money. You'll save 30-40%.
Jim, how many used guitars have you bought back there? I think one. Two?
That one.
Yeah.
Well, and that one, yeah. My one back.
Yeah. Well, the other one doesn't count because you bought it twice.
Right. And
has it occurred to you that you paid like $6,000 for that guitar over the time you've owned it?
I paid more than the value.
Double the value
that I should, but not the, but yeah, more than I should have. A lot more. Because I purchased it twice.
Never mind the mental anguish.
That's the part that hurts. That's the part that hurts the most. There's that song by Rascal Flatts, What Hurts the Most. That's the what hurts the most. But yeah, on a serious note, that's that's beside the point. Although I don't want it to be beside the point. But I can say this, that guitar right there that I'm pointing to, the used prices have already, just in the last couple weeks, because you and I were looking at actual sales. If you look at that number, it is spiking hard to the up.
Yeah.
And I already paid well under what the number was at.
But it's not going to stay that way. And that's the point of this whole conversation, is that because the economy is going to change, the rug is about to be pulled out from under a lot of these buyers. So if you're listening to this show, unless you absolutely need something, I wouldn't be buying crap on Reverb right now. I would be doing what I call turtling. I would keep my money very, very close to my pocket and be like, nope, wait 6 weeks, wait 8 weeks, wait 12 weeks. It's not going to take very long. Once life has kind of like flipped towards the post-COVID thing, wherein it's like, what do we do with the housing market? How do we deal with the fact that the government's now another, $20 trillion in debt or whatever it's going to wind up being after all the stimulus and stuff? That's when you want to be like, okay, now I'll play ball, because there are going to be people like, I got to make a house payment. I got to, do X, Y, and Z. That's when it's time to throw your money at it.
And then it's going to be the buyer's market, because at that point, if I've got to make my house payment, I got to make it by the 5th of the month, right? Mm-hmm. And so the magic dates to buy are going to be between the 28th probably or so, and the 5th or the 3rd, 4th of the month, because they want to get their money in the bank. They're going to want to close that transaction, get that money into their account before the 5th, before they get hit with a late charge and the other stuff.
Well, the house payment idea is one thing, but I'm just saying, like, that's when they have to pay the fiddler. And I think that the market's going to drop significantly. So I think even things like, you could see current Les Paul standards, they're $2,500 new, $2,450 I think. They're $2,450 new if you pay retail, and I suspect you will see them south of $1,700 used by middle of next year.
I would not be surprised.
And I don't think things are going to come back up very quickly either. A lot of that's what people don't understand is a lot of the big ticket sales over the last 2 years have been people who've never bought a guitar. I mean, they're not going to keep it when they realize I don't really play that and it's sitting in the corner collecting dust. We've never had a situation like the lockdown driving the market like this. It's going to be wild. I'm telling you. Just hold tight. Wait a couple weeks, couple months. Don't overpay for things. I wouldn't buy Strymon. I wouldn't buy anything. I saw somebody list a Prince of Tone. The Prince of Tone is an imported pedal by Analog Man. He has them made overseas, imported in the United States. It's like $200, and it's basically one half of a King of Tone. I saw a Prince of Tone, which, by the way, you can still get those. I saw one on Reverb for $900. And they weren't joking. And I kind of sat there and I go, how dumb do you think people are? But then I thought about it. In this economy, maybe they're backlisted. Maybe they're backordered. You know?
Well, looking right now, I just did a quick cursory search for the 60s standards that are on the market on Reverb right now. All right. And of course, you and I both know you can look for the chart of actual sales.
Right.
But the asking prices are close to the new prices.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them over the new prices. An Unburst for $2,800 plus. If I add shipping to any one of those, we're already over new price. And that's the other part of it that you know you got to take into account is that number. Now, I'm not saying that they sell for that, but on 416, an excellent Les Paul Standard sold for $2,949. That is $500 over your regular old price. You can walk into a Guitar Center that you can call you don't even have to call your Sweetwater rep. ZZ Sounds, pick your poison as far as guitar sellers, and you can do better than that. That's what's incredible. I can't fathom those numbers that
Yeah.
are being paid.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's just listen. I'm sitting on what I have right now. Now I have a guitar that's on the wall here. It's going to get sold in the next couple weeks. But I'm kind of just sitting here and I'm like, I felt obligated to tell my wife. I was like, I'm selling that. I don't know what I'm going to do with the money. And I said, I'm planning to buy another guitar later this year. So probably just going to put the money away, in the sock
right.
drawer. I'm not going to get a ton out of it. And I actually don't really care. I just don't want it around anymore. Like, it's taking up space. And quite frankly, I'm not playing it. So,
Mhm.
But anyway, I'm kind of that ilk right now where it's just like, get it out of here. And I'm
Yeah.
not really concerned about it. Right now is a good time to sell. So if you are selling something, I
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to be the guy that I feel bad because I'm like being the guy that's giving our customers, our listeners advice, and being a jerk to the buyers or to the sellers. But I also feel like, we're in a situation where people should all be sort of pensive. And if you're not,
Yep.
then, maybe I'll be the voice of reason for you.
Well, again, so let's talk about the double cut that I purchased. So I was on Facebook Marketplace and I saw the double cut, and a friend of mine had bought one long before the COVID thing. And he got his is amber, mine is red. Similar year, similar design. He got his for about what I paid. And so I was like, okay, that's a reasonable price. That price that person was asking for mine was in the ballpark. As a matter of fact, my friend paid a little bit more, but he's got the gold hardware version. Mine's the chrome hardware.
He also has the gold hardware. He also has binding on the neck.
Yeah, and he's got binding on the neck, and I don't. So, we I called him, and uh, I talked to you, I talked to him, and I talked to, Robert Jackson. And, I talked to all 3 and I said, "Okay, that's a reasonable price." So it's not terrible, it's not great. Robert told me, he goes, "Jim, that's on the low side of of the market." And, you know, so even if things go south, I'll be okay to be able to get my money back out of it if I have to. And so I felt comfortable there. And that's the thing, same with when I just bought the Les Paul back. I'm comfortable with what I paid because if I absolutely have to, if I've got to, but I will sell my guitar before I lose my home, right? I mean, I think anyone here with common sense would do the same thing,
I mean, we're realists. We sort of understand that there's intrinsic value to this stuff.
right? Somebody asked me the other day, they said, "All right, if you got or if you got one guitar, this is what's funny." They said, "If you got one guitar that you could take out of the house, it's it. One. House on fire, which one is it?" And I said, it's both of these because I've got 2 hands. It's both my Les Paul standards.
Neither, because I would be more worried about getting my family out of the house, and then I will call the insurance company.
Oh, Kyle can get out of the house. He's next to the front door. He's already left by the time I get out. When you come down to visit, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, hell, if you get a fire in your house, you could probably just open a window. I mean, and then
That's what I'm gonna say.
Like,
and my house is only like right off the ground.
it's like no isolated
"Ah."
rooms. You get incredible Hulk your way out of it. I mean,
Yeah, that's what's funny. There's one isolated room. I'm in it.
yeah. So if you want to burn down Jim's house, while the show is being recorded, would probably be the best time to do that.
Time. That's the best time so that you get me, because I literally can't get out except through that door. It would take sledgehammers and pickaxes to get me out any other way, literally. Um, but anyway, on a reasonable and side note, so I want to talk then about the other side of it. So we've got this rush, right, of people buying expensive gear. The expensive gear is going. People are showing off PRSs, people showing off expensive custom shop um, fenders, um, making future purchases that they can't even get yet. Some of them. Fender's got the what do they call it? The Mojo Shop or the Mod Shop?
Oh, the Mod Shop, yeah.
Mod Shop's back up and
I
running.
keep forgetting that they're actually still doing that.
I know. Well, it's like an 18-month to 2-year rate.
Yeah, and not only that, but like they don't even have all their parts available.
Hey, they'll take your money.
Oh yeah, I know.
Take your money up front.
They've been doing it for a long time. They're one of the greatest lifestyle brands on earth.
Mm-hmm. Doing a great job of it. So, and I say that with the utmost of whatever. So, but it is the only way for you to get like, I don't know why they do this. They're like, they'll have a color and they'll go, okay, we've got we've got this, the Ultra. Well, let's use the Ultra as an example. The Mocha Burst was only available with that neck. You can't get it on a rosewood neck. But if you went to the mod shop, paid the exact same amount of money, you could get it with the rosewood neck. But anyway, so I guess they figured that those colors didn't go together. I'm not sure what was going on. Some guy bought the parts. He literally bought the parts. He didn't get the case, and he saved a ton of money by just buying a body and a neck, and he put them together.
Oh, people do that all the time.
Bodies have
people do it all the time.
Yeah, saved a ton of money.
Yeah. So the Mod Shop, what we're talking about for a second. Just to interject, the Mod Shop is hilarious. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hilarious because, like I said, it's back ordered all hell. And Fender, actually, because of the way the guitars are assembled, I'm not even sure why they offer real models. Because other than having Mexican versus American production and, import production, whatever you want to call it, because they do Japanese as well. Why not just say, we're doing this new neck, and the signature becomes the neck and not the whole guitar, and you could put that neck on any Fender body. Like, Why don't they just sell Legos? Like, what the hell? At this point, they could make a lot of money doing that, being a Warmoth, but except that they do the assembly too.
Yeah. You know what? It goes right over my head when it comes to that. I've said that before. When we had the Fender versus Gibson discussion, I said a million times, Fender is a Lego. It's a Lego. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great.
Gibson can't do that because of the way that their guitars are assembled. Like, everything is like an independent part thing. Like, the neck tenon on an SG is different than the neck tenon on a Les Paul, which is different than the neck tenon on a 335. And then, of course, they have the hollow bodies. So Gibson can't do that. But Fender, I mean, you can literally take a Strat neck and put it on a Telecaster. I mean, it's like no other thing where, fine. I mean, they could do what Kiesel does. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm like, seems a little weird to me. And they would rather invest in something like the Acoustasonic than just, open up their whole parts line and be like, just come in. Come down to the California Custom Shop, walk through, pick out your neck, pick out your body, put them together. We'll do the wiring, take it home.
Yep. Hey, we've got a new neck. I mean, you want to roast it? I've thought about getting a roasted maple neck, as a second neck. I mean, it does cross my mind because that's what that guy did. He bought a roasted maple. He was like, I don't want a rosewood neck. I want a maple neck. And if I'm going to buy a maple neck, may as well get the roasted maple, make it look cool. He did.
Well, it's not about the look. It's about stability. But for some people, it's about the look.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, he didn't want the other. He wanted a maple neck, and he figured, well, why not get a roasted maple? That's a better neck than, well, for him at least, than a regular maple neck is what he was thinking. So
yeah,
and anyway, so I want to go to the other side of this, and that's the inexpensive guitar market. I mean, if you're the kind of person who buys the inexpensive guitars, you can't get your hand on a Firefly. Matter of fact, if you search Firefly guitars on Amazon, you won't find them. They won't even show them to you as a well, we don't have any anymore. Unless you have a link to the actual one product that's been shared, like from Guitar Max or something.
Yeah.
You can't even you can't even search the page. You could Google it, but I'm just saying. So there are plenty of pop-up companies that do the same thing that are showing up. I was listing today Grote and one called Best Value. I mean, it's something
Hard Luck Kings.
Hard Luck Kings is one of them.
Hard Luck Kings is hilarious. So as you're talking about these brands, like some of them are what you say. They spec the guitar. Then there's Hard Luck Kings, who buys the scraps.
That's it.
And then says they're a model. Like the stuff that because it's like when you order from these Chinese companies, you can spec something or you can like look through a catalog and pick out what you want. And that's what Hard Luck Kings does. They go, oh, that's cheap. Let's do that one.
Yep. And well, I mean, come on. If you're ordering through Amazon, no offense to someone who's lucked out and got a decent guitar, because it does happen. The expectation that one would say that, hey, I got a great guitar for $100.50 from so and so that isn't a Lego. I'm still skeptical. I'm still very skeptical.
Listen. We bought the Shengzai. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Here's my hot take on this. You wouldn't buy a guitar from Walmart, so why would you buy one from Amazon?
Right.
I know there are people that are going to throw a fit in the comments and be like, "This isn't Amazon. Or this isn't Walmart. I would buy one from Walmart or whatever." Like if you're buying your guitars from Walmart, more power to you, but you're nuts. I'll call it like I see it. I wouldn't buy a trumpet from Walmart. Why would I buy a guitar from Walmart? I think, as we go down this rabbit hole, you'll start to see where I'm going with this. You wouldn't buy a tuba from Walmart. You
There are
know,
dog treats I won't buy from Walmart. I'll just
yeah,
let you know that.
let's be real here for a minute. Um, Amazon isn't much different. Now they have
Right.
name brand stuff on Amazon. Like you can go and you can get Wampler pedals and that kind of stuff. Um, but when Amazon does their own brand, Firefly is not their own brand. I think it's an
No.
offshoot, but that's basically what that is. I mean,
Right.
Firefly isn't being sold anywhere else. The other company that comes to mind, I just want to mention briefly, is Sawtooth Guitars, and
Sawtooth was one of
we had
the
Michelangelo Bedio on the show. I don't know what happened to his deal with Dean. Obviously went south. He's selling Sawtooth Guitars now. It's an Amazon brand. Can you say? Go on, Jim.
yeah, yeah. I'd love to be able to pick his brain on that. Yeah, to your point and probably to mine, I would hope to mine, is okay. So you mentioned Sawtooth. We mentioned Groat. We mentioned Firefly. This is what I've got to say about it. Is what I've got to say about it. I understand that not everybody has the expectation to buy a guitar that is top shelf or even middle shelf. If you're buying a guitar, you're just learning to play and you want to learn to play and everything else. I mean, I don't see any problem with buying $150 guitar. But the expectation is not you, the buyer. It's not you, the listener. It is, in my personal opinion, it's irresponsible of some of the YouTube channels to tout stuff that may not even we don't even know if we'll ever see a Firefly again. And because right now, Amazon is not saying it's coming soon. Amazon is saying we may never get them again.
Yeah, and
That's what you get when you go to link directly. It's not, it is, we do not know when or if these will ever be put in stock, or if. That is in there. That's very rare you see that in their writing.
well, the other mindset issue here is like I don't understand the buyer. Like I understand the seller. They see a hole that they're going to fill with their product, and they're fine with selling a product that is either standard or below standard depending on how you look at it. I just wondered, like the buyer. So is it always? Because I know it's not. Like I'm playing devil's advocate. That it always seems like, oh, it's a beginner thing. Like this is for beginners. This is for beginners. But I never see beginners buying that stuff. You know, I see beginners buying. I see beginners buying Squires. Okay, they know enough. They ask their buddy. There's enough guitar players out there. Everybody knows somebody who plays guitar. What should I buy? And then they say, go buy a Squire or go buy a Epiphone.
Yep.
Or if you're really lucky and you have a nice buddy, he says, go buy a pure SSE.
Right.
And then they go down to the store, and that's what they end up with. They talk to the Guitar Center guy, and he sends them with a Strat pack or an individualized Squire package that he put together at the store. And it's like Firefly and Groat and Hard Luck Kings and all these other companies are like making the sales pitch that, well, it's just cheaper to go through us, and we're getting them from the same place, which isn't true because they're not buying from Cortec, and all these different things. And I think it's disingenuous. But from the buyer perspective, like the people that are buying those guitars, they have a couple already. Most of them have a couple already. Like, and it's not like they have nice guitars usually either. It's like they might have a Squire and then they have like 4 Hard Luck Kings guitars, or they might even have a Fender. And then they've got like, a Hard Luck Kings 335 copy or something. And then like, oh no, actually I was thinking about Firefly. And then like a Sawtooth Strat. And it's like, I'm not mad. I don't care. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to sit here. Well, I know we've talked about this on the show before. I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and tell you should buy 20 guitars or you should just have 2 nice ones. I get by with 2 nice ones. That's my preference. But
yeah,
there's definitely people out there that are like, I want to have a wall full of guitars, and they buy, Fireflies, and they buy, cheap Epiphones, and they fill a room with them.
And Yep. And I've noticed that a lot of folks, at least where I meet those folks, is they're in groups where it's a learners group, like Guitar Zoom community or whatever. So what they do is they say, "Oh, gas hit me again, gas hit me again." But that's the same person that then is in there. I can't make a G chord. I mean, it's like,
It's the people that like buy gear to make up for the fact that they haven't learned how to play.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's by and large, I would say that's pretty much the example. There are definitely exceptions to that example, but
yeah,
I think for the most part, like when you run into the guy that's got 25 guitars at under $100 a piece bought on Amazon, he's probably not a great player. Or he's buying them for wood and he's like completely gutting them and maybe
right.
even planing
And
the necks and ripping the frets out and redo it. Because
yep,
I've run into people that do that kind of stuff too, where they'll
that's
buy a
exactly what I was
Squire
gonna
and
say.
just strip it bare and
Then
like start over.
right. Like my uncle used to do in the '70s. So he would buy, 57 Chevys and, that type of thing, and he would strip them down, he would redo everything and redo he would juvenate these trucks and cars, and then he would sell them at ridiculous prices, by the way. But the time and the energy and the money he spent on that thing, you'd think, "Wow, he must have been making money." Not really, because
No,
it takes so much effort.
it's just a labor of love
Now
for sure.
right, and I believe, because 'cause I've thought about it. I have thought very long and hard. Matter of fact, my PRS SE is my, I hate to say it, that's my kit guitar. It's my one, 'cause, that's getting, as you know, I've, talked to Nick Bongers, he's, wiring me some, pickups. Um, Nick and I are gonna do a little bit of a trade, I gotta give him some money.
Look,
Um,
we're shilling. We're shilling. No, he doesn't actually
we
give
are.
us. He just gives us pickups to give away to you guys. So
Yeah, 'cause believe me, we don't get anything for free. And I'm paying full price. Um, but I'm giving him an item he wants,
I'm
as
fine
well.
paying full. I actually
Yeah,
tip Nick when he
I
gets
have
me
no
stuff. I
problem.
send him tips
Yeah,
now because
yeah, I have
he
no
takes care of
problem
me.
with
So
getting stuff from him, yeah, and I figured that was at first I was gonna buy a set of Duncan Antiquities, and I looked at the price tag and I said,
what a
"Wait a
waste of
minute,
money.
that's ridiculous. I could
Okay.
probably do a
All right.
lot
All right.
better."
All right.
Let's
Let me
Yeah, we're gonna go
let's
into an
yeah.
advertisement right now.
Let's stop for a second. No,
Yeah,
this isn't even just an advertisement, right? Like, we Nick has been a proud person in the Facebook group and like been responsible
absolutely.
for being on the show multiple times and everything.
Yep,
I want to talk about Seymour Duncan lately. Antiquities and like the whole like above the normal standard line of pickups, the Zephyrs in there, and um
yep.
are you effing nuts? Like, what are people thinking? Um, you can find people like Nick that exist.
Mhm.
They do exist. I've been hanging around with Nick for a while now. And I can say that like you can find people that will wind you pickups for the same amount of money, and they will be exactly what you want. Whereas you're going to buy this cookie cutter thing and hope it works out for you. And in the case of antiquities, I'm not really sure why they're so damn expensive. It's not rocket science. I mean,
Yeah, they're just Alnico 5 PAFs.
if you've
But
ever
here's
said,
the
Jim, when you sit down with somebody and you actually make a set of pickups, and there's labor involved. It takes about 2 hours, right?
yeah,
But like the difference between antiquities, at least in my mind, and the pickups that like I've seen made, is like an extra 5 minutes worth of work, and it costs an extra $100. You're
yeah,
freaking out of your mind.
yeah. Now, that's where it hit me. I said, "You know what?" And I'm just doing this for our listeners. I said, "All right, I'm looking for a set of pickups for it because I don't like the PRS pickups that are in it." Now, you know that I liked the S15, the 8515S's that I had before.
What are in
These
the?
8515S's, it's the same thing, but these are
I think your
just,
tastes have just changed.
yeah,
I
it may be because they feel muddy and lifeless. They
remember
feel
you also had a different amp when you had those last
I did.
8515s.
I had the floor amp, blue.
Well, you did you did a
That
shootout. You have a
shootout
shootout
was on the
video,
blue.
and
Yep, that was on the blue guitar.
you can hear in that shootout how different the PRS SE pickups were. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm like, I get it. It's just I think you've just fallen out of favor with it because you want something that's a little bit more open sounding. Because the
Yeah.
PRS pickups tend to be a bit tighter voiced. They're
Yeah.
not as open. They're not scatterwound.
No.
They don't seem scatterwound. They seem very focused.
Right, right. Which has got its place.
Sure.
If I was playing
Jazz
really heavy
fusion or like
yeah, yep, where I was really rolling back off on the tone knob, or where I scooped all my mids out, that type
Are
of
they?
thing.
Do you would you say that they have more top end than your Les Paul pickups? More sparkle?
None. None.
No
I
sparkle.
would say that they lack sparkle completely.
Okay.
Seriously. I can roll it all in. I can even pull out the thing and go to single coil.
What's your pickup height on there look like?
It's
Because I'm wondering if
measure
your
it,
I'm wondering if your pickups are low.
that's a possibility.
Yeah,
I'd have to measure them.
you might want
It's a possibility.
you'll still get better
If I
pickups.
raise them,
You'll still
yeah.
get better pickups coming from Nick, but that would be interesting to just tweak it and see what the difference is.
yeah, I could do that because I have no problem doing that because I'm going to have to reset it anyway when I get next in. But uh, what's going on with it, to be honest with you, is just that I find it dull and lifeless and very little high end. And they're hot enough, and that's why I didn't think, well, they're punchy enough. So I didn't think height was really that much. I didn't think to raise them at all, but
Well, you're also playing a Strat now part of the time. And
Yeah.
you want to talk about high end pickups. I mean, I know people are like, oh, Telecasters have way more high end than Strat. No. Strat pickups they're basically glass. It's like
Yeah.
playing glass.
Yep. And Pearl, I mean, Pearl has a nice
It's a
she's
glassy
got-
sound. Yeah, it's a more
Yeah.
top end focused Les Paul thing.
Yep. And so I really like that tone. So the truth of the matter is, the only one that's got like a jazzier tone that I really enjoy is the 335.
Which
But when I
that's
play
to be
the
expected.
335, that's what I want. Yeah,
Yeah, that's to
what
be expected. I mean, that's what a 335's for.
Yeah, that's what I pulled it down for, and that's what I bought it for, and that's what I expect from it. So those T-top pickups work for that. But anyway, yeah, for our listeners, I think the most important thing is that if you are going to get new pickups, and it doesn't have to be Nick. I mean, we're recommending Nick because he's a friend of the channel.
He's done work for everybody we know at this point, and everything I've ever seen from him has been stellar. I don't promote everybody. I mean, I got GNL guitars. I wouldn't tell you to buy GNL right now. I'll be honest with you. I think GNL right now is making a lot of mistakes. So
yeah. Even some of the big fans of yourself included in that group are saying things about GNL. They're like, yeah, you might want to hold off for a little while. But let me get back to Nick here, and that is that with Nick, you can call him or email him or message him in Facebook.
Yeah,
he's still small enough. He's not a lollar.
He'll talk to you,
and so he will talk directly to you, and he will ask you, what is it you're looking for? And as long as you know what you're looking for, this is the problem. This is where it gets tricky. You have to know what you want.
Yeah.
You're in customer service as well as I am, as far as software goes. So you know exactly what I'm about to say.
I hate to admit it, but yes.
Sometimes the customer does not know what they want.
Nope.
So
you have to tell them.
I cannot tell you. I'm in software release management, right? Okay, so I cannot tell you how many deployments I do a week that are just because the user said they wanted something they didn't want and didn't know how to clearly specify what it was they were looking for. Now, if you went to Nick and said, I've got an SG and I want it to sound like Angus Young on Highway to Hell, that I'm sure he could say, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've ordered pickups from him that way.
Yeah, I've got that.
The one in my Shingze, I told him, I said, I want Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And I got Jimmy Page.
And that's what you got. You got Jimmy Page with a warped neck. I mean,
that's not warped. It's not warped.
Okay. It's not warped. Okay.
No. No, yeah, I thought it was, but
Good.
one truss rod tweak and it doesn't appear
Boom.
to be warped.
You're
It
back.
just sucks, but it's not warped.
That's good. I mean, the other part's bad, but that's good.
The
I mean,
guitar
and I'm
sucks.
looking at. I've been thinking very hard about, it, but I need another Les Paul, like I need a hole in the head. But
Yes.
um, and that's why I'm not doing it. But I'm thinking I might do that with a Telecaster. I might get a Telecaster and just mod it to an inch of its life. I mean, but I'm gonna wait until this whole COVID thing is done, and just like we were talking about earlier, I'm gonna wait until I can pick up a frickin' Fender, Telecaster online for 75 bucks and then mod it to an inch of its life. I I just watched, a video. This is a little bit of a segue, but it brings us to where we are now. So there's a all-female, surf band from Canada called the
Suffragettes.
Suffragettes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've
suffragettes.
heard of them too, right? Very good. They're very good. I had heard them before.
I heard about them through Ryan
Um,
Burke.
yeah, I heard them before. I'd seen, they pop up in my feed every now and again. I'll listen to them because I like the Ventures. That's probably why I like the Ventures and the Beach Boys and the Jana Dean thing and all that stuff. So I'm kind of, I'm kind of in tune with that. I grew up with it. So um they had a cover of Walk Don't Run, and then the next video that was recommended, and sometimes this happens to me because I'm driving down the road. I've got my
I know where this
iPhone.
is
I was
going.
telling David,
I know where this
and
is
I'm like, "Oh,
going.
I can't stop it," so it just goes to the next video, right? And it goes into this thing, and the girl from the Suffragettes, the blonde guitar player, you can't call one a lead and one rhythm, which I really like about them because they both take turns, even in the same songs. They'll go back and forth and lead and rhythm, which was kind of very Ventures like in the way that they do things.
Mhm.
So um, the blonde girl is talking about her guitar that she has that was a Fender Jaguar, I think, and it doesn't matter because what she did was she bought a Jaguar that was a stock red Squire Jaguar off of Craigslist. And she talks about how she shouldn't have gone to the person's place. She was like, "Yeah, I went to this person's house and we went down to his basement." I was like, "Whoa." She goes, "Yeah, I don't recommend it." But she did have a friend and they did it safely. But anyway, so she brings this guitar home and she's got a picture of it all torn to pieces. So she removed the hardware is all new. She got uh
Mastery
these
Bridge and all that, I'm sure.
Mastery Bridge foil pickups from some guy that's Corey or
McNelly.
no, no, it would have that I would have. But anyway, got foil pickups that have like a mustache. They're called mustache foil pickups. They're really cool looking, and she had it painted. And this is where I was like, oh, ever thought of? I knew that they used DuPont paints in fenders
Yeah, they were
in the
they were
day.
they were car colors. Yeah.
She took it to a car guy and which was a friend of her father's, and had the car guy who no longer does this stuff. He's retired since then. She goes, "You can't get him to do it anymore." But
You can't even
she's
get that
maybe
you can't even get that paint anymore. Like you have to because it is nitro, but it's
Yep.
so the lacquer is nitro, the paint itself is not.
Yeah. So she took it to this car guy that redid old cars like my uncle used to do back when he was still around, and he did the blue sparkle paint, and then he did the matching headstock, which I thought was cool, and then she had uh, the Shagwire, like, Austin Powers, and because her name is
Mhm.
Shamey, and, I'm sure her name is Amy or something, but anyway, Shamey, and so that's her stage name, and she did all this stuff to it, replaced everything. I mean, she modded this thing in an inch of its life. The point is, she took a $200 guitar or whatever it is. I think she paid like $100 for it or something, and then modded it to an inch of its life, and now it's this beautiful thing that's all hers. But you never think to yourself, if I was her, I never have to wonder, can I get my money back out of that guitar? Sure I can. I can take all the crap off it and sell the body and the neck
Yeah, sell the
for
parts.
$100
Take a
and
while.
sell the parts
So
if I
take a
had to
while.
do it. Yeah, but that's her guitar from her first albums and stuff like that.
Right, right,
So,
right.
yeah, it's really cool to see that. And now she's got a custom one made by one of those builders, not Jeff Sen, but somebody like that. Um, but a really smaller scale. She goes, "I'm 5'2", and it still feels big, the Jaguar does. And Jaguars are big. Anybody who's played one knows that a Jaguar is actually big. Um, so, um, but anyway, my point is that if I was to buy a cheap guitar like that, if I was to go to Grote or Sawtooth or somebody like that would be like you just said for the wood, like you're doing with the Shangzai. You've replaced what? You've replaced the pickups. You've replaced the.
The pickups have come
Um,
out. The tuners
yep,
are new.
yep,
I still have to do the bridge. I
yep.
don't know if I'm going to bother. I mean, I've gone back and forth on it. So I don't know whether I'm even gonna bother replacing it.
Now,
But
did you do the pots and the?
yeah, the electronics were all redone when I installed the new pickups. I have a new switch sitting here in the cup in front of me.
Yep.
That needs to get replaced because the existing one is shorting out. Um, yeah, it's just if I dump the bridge in it, it's another $200. Because I would put Tone Pros locking
Yep.
bridge on there, and I mean it's just I have to decide whether it's actually worth it. I'm actually so one of the guitars I'm going to look at when I go to buy, I'm start looking at Les Paul standards. I'm gonna have to make a decision about whether that makes sense for me. Just because I have I have a Strat, I have it's probably more likely that I'll end up with another Strat, a second one, than anything else. But
Mhm.
and if I do, it'll probably be a really high end Strat from somebody. It'll be like an Anderson,
Right.
something like that. But
Sir.
I just and I'll probably not Sir. If I'm gonna spend, I'm gonna spend in the right place. Anderson Guitar Works, like my gut reaction to them was like, holy crap, that's expensive. But I've kind of come back around on it in a little way, so it's like, yeah, I'd have to move a lot of stuff to make that happen, but it might be worth it. Especially because I want to share something. So most of this podcast, I've been like dabbling in digital gear, right? I had the Kemper for a while, I had the Helix for a while, and I gigged both of those, and then I actually used the Katana once at a gig, and like I've had this Mark V 25 the entire time we've done the show. I've never actually played with it in a band situation. I've played it with like other guitar players, but never with a full band. And yesterday we had a rehearsal, and since I don't have a Kemper right now, I had to bring my amp. So I brought my 1x12 Lone Star Cab, my Mark V 25, my pedal board, and my guitar, and my Captor X. And it was really cool because I had the Captor X in the middle position, so my volume was like I was in complete control. We were playing in a garage with the doors open, and
Yep.
so I could get super loud, and that helped me with that. But my God, the tone, man, holy hell! Like what I've been missing for all this time, like was just right there in the palm of my hand. I had it on the clean channel, the fat mode, basically knobs at noon, and the 5-band was tweaked with a little bit of extra treble and plenty of mids and stuff. And like I was using the King of Tone for my lead boost, and I was in heaven the whole time. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Actually, the cool part was I had this guy, the Boss Wireless, which had broken. I thought more on this in a second. And I was using this. I was walking around the room, and I could hear, out in the because I could walk down to get to the driveway even, and I could hear my playing, and I was like, holy crap! I mean, it sounds like crap standing right on top of the amp, but like, if you're in the audience, Jesus! I mean, it just sounded so good. Like it was just nuts. It was a religious experience. So this is the Boss, what WL20 or whatever the box is here somewhere. Wireless system that I had, and I said that it'd burn out, and I want to give them a fair shake at this. So I was going to actually send this back to them. Now when I'm in tech, so when I knew this thing wasn't charging, I tried 3 different cables. None of them worked. I tried to get an RMA, and then I was like, I'm not going to send this back in because it's only a $180 item. Like, they're going to charge more to repair it than it's worth. And then I was like, you know what? Hell with it. I'm sending it in. I'm getting it repaired. And then it was COVID, and I couldn't get an RMA number, and so then like the other day I was like, I need to get this taken care of. So I went to go open the RMA, like took it out of the box, and I was like, I better just plug this in and make sure it doesn't charge. Brand new cable from Amazon. This thing charged.
Yeah. Yep.
It works great now. I'm so mad. For like 2 years, that thing sat in the box. So mad.
You were talking about your tone and that openness. I know I've done it before. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I put the twin reverb on 85 watts. I put the volume up at 6. And I just lightly, that's the thing. And I heard, and I want to talk to that because then Brent Mason, in an interview with Premier Guitar, I think, or Zach from True Tone Lab, one of the two, he said this same exact thing. I played with that thing cranked. My volume rolled back just a little on my guitar. Now, yes, was it loud? It was loud. But let me tell you something. It is just what you were talking about. It's a religious experience. I took my Marshall and I pushed the volume on the channel to 9, and I put the master to 10. I pushed that, or I'm sorry, 9 o'clock, or no, 3 o'clock, sorry, on the volume. Gain only about, what is that on a clock? 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
And the master all the way up. The EQ pretty much across the board, presence, everything at right there. Let me tell you something. And I hit a chord on that, and you just lightly. And this is the thing that Brett Mason was talking about. He said it's a different playing experience when you do that and when you can do that. And what it is, and that's what I wasn't able to like articulate myself, is when you play with the amp up and you lightly hit, you have to control more. Mason said the same thing. You've got to think about your because every pick noise is heard. Everything you do is heard because it's out there. It's not compression, folks. It's just pure freaking volume. But it's a different playing experience. It's a completely different playing experience. I'll just say that. And yet, me, even as me, and I'm not as confident as some people should be at my age and playing experience. I was 10 times better. And I've noticed that when I get on stage with people who are playing at these kinds of volumes, that I can rip it. And I never feel as comfortable with everything turned down.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
So I think we're probably describing things differently because I wasn't even loud, but the way I had my amp set up was like everything was just warm, and it was like there wasn't. So I just warm. I'm trying to think of a tone that would be similar. Like it was kind of brown sound. I didn't really have a lot of treble coming out of the amp at all, really. In fact, I went over to the 5-band and I actually pushed the treble slider up, which is unheard of for me. Mine's usually at neutral all the time. But I was playing, in the right setting. It was open doors, so there was not really a whole lot of reverberation going around. And the way that I fit with the band was really good. The bass player's got a new amp. He's got an SVT. No.
Oh, okay.
We'll say the Ampeg. But he's got a new bass amp, and it's good. It's a 1x15 tilt back combo, big amp. So it was just like we weren't stepping on each other's toes. I noticed his low mids were dialed back. Mine were. That's where I sit, is in the low mids. So it was. I need to definitely crank the treble up a little bit more for the gig, but I think that'll be balanced because the Captor X will put out more treble than I do on the stage, and it will fill out the venue nicely. But it was, I kind of kicked myself because I'm like, I know I could do those sounds with the Kemper, but they weren't as rich. And that's where I was talking about like the religious experience. Like when you realize, man, I can hear every freaking harmonic in perfect clarity at this angle standing over here. And it wasn't the same when I was standing right in front of the amp. It definitely wasn't. I was like, it's a loud guitar. Like that's good. But as soon as I stepped away from it and I could hear the speaker hitting me, and it's that C90 speaker in that Lone Star, man. That cabinet is like, I don't know. I love those speakers, and so apparently those speakers are based on the lead 80 that was in the JCM 800, the original JCM 800 cabs, because it's not the lead 80 they do now. Right. They sound sort of similar, but these are definitely different than the current lead 80. I love these speakers. I cannot get enough of them, and my Fillmore has one in it too, so I'll have 3 of them. I need one more, and I can buy a 412.
There you go. Well, again, what I'm talking about is I'm playing with the amp loud and then dialing myself back and learning how, or not learning, but controlling what I'm doing. And I just mean that it's a different touch. It's a different, I always told you I have a light touch, right? And it responds. I see what you're doing. It responds well to the way that I'm going back and forth. And I feel the equipment breathing with me. That it's a great experience. It's just something that I know you can't get it out of a Spark, because I can crank a Spark and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get that out of there. And as much as I love the Katanas, I'm not gonna get that out of a Katana. There's just something about an amp that really responds and really, uh, you know
I totally understand what you're talking about. And you're talking about the responsiveness of an amp that's just loud and clean versus
bless you.
loud and proud.
Right.
Rather than
Bless you again. I think you got some on me that time.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous, man. My allergies are just going nuts here the last 20 minutes.
David just gave me a computer virus. I'm just kidding.
Loud and proud, right?
Yep.
And what I mean by that, it's like people bitch because they're like the Dumble thing is like the amp that tells on you, right? Because so when you roll back your volume knob, you're literally rolling back volume and you're stepping back in the mix. And for a lot of people, they're not comfortable being out in front, like where they have 3D gain over the rest of the band, right?
Yep.
You really got to get yourself into that mindset, and that's where I live. Like I've always been the solo guitar player. I've always, so for me, when I dip back, like I have this moment where I'm like, well, hell, I don't really even have to do anything. Like half the time when I play with Old Stumpy, and I know people can tell, but when I'm playing Old Stumpy tunes, it's all covers, and it's always root 3rd, 5th, and like I'll play the root all the way through the progression, and nobody will notice, because I'm just like I'm quiet enough that it's not really that big a deal. And then sometimes like I'll make a mistake here or there, like I'll shift to the wrong chord or I'll do it at the wrong time, and it's I said root 3rd, 5th. My bet was root 145.
Yeah.
And we just go through these like moments where you're playing this stuff and you're like, God, like nobody can even hear me. And it's like totally liberating. I could just stand there and just like plink, single notes. And that's what I do most of the time. Because I'm like, I'm just in this place where I don't really have to step out. Then he calls a solo and I'm like not paying attention. And that's where I get my ass handed to me, because I'm like, oh shit, what key is this? Like I forgot. Or in some cases, like now that I'm getting to think more modally, I'm like, what mode is this? Because I'm like, I could use other things. Of course, not anything is 1 3 or 1 4 5, but
right.
Anyway, but yeah, like I understand the experience because I'm the opposite side. So like I know what it's like to roll back and sit back in the mix. And
Oh
you
yeah,
you
yeah.
play better when you're sitting back in the mix too, because like to an extent, you're like, I'm not as loud and proud. Like I don't have to be as it's not as uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Um so for what
Yeah,
it's worth.
it's two different things. I mean, um, first of all, there's nothing wrong with that. That is actually an important thing. Uh, I saw a friend's band over the weekend, and his lead guitar player, um, my friend was playing rhythm, and his quote unquote lead guitar player, once he got the very first song and the very first solo, and the first time he turned it up, he never came back. And so the whole time, the voice is like this. Here's the voice. It's like an ASMR. And he's like, and it's like, okay, but now I can't hear the vocals. And this is a small place. It has terribly hard floors. It's got a high ceiling at least. Um, but hard walls, hard floors, glass, everything's bouncing around. Um, those are things you've gotta think about when you're a guitar player. He just stood there proud as he could be. "Look at me." And the thing that really ticked me off is how he was barely in tune. He had 2 tuners. He had a he had a tuner on his headstock and he had a tuner on his feet. You ever know a person that has 2 tuners
But doesn't
and
use
is
either of
still
them.
not in tune? Not even close.
But they don't use either of them.
Right. And it's like, I'm looking at him going and so the headstock tuner is there. He's got the tuner on the floor, and he tuned a couple times. But whole time I'm thinking, you could back off, let the guy that's playing rhythm be heard once in a while and sing loud enough that we can hear him, and you could tune your frigging guitar and then come back, at least in tune. And um, but he was so proud of it. I don't think he was aware of the fact that he wasn't even in the same damn sonic space. There were a few times he was playing a different rhythm than everybody else. And see, that's when you should know and be aware that you need to be a part of a band. And that thing you were talking about where you're coming back, you're sitting back, that's just as important as getting out there. Because if you're always out in front, unless you're the only guitar player, Anthony Rosano, which by the time people have
Yeah, that
heard
episode will be
this
out.
episode, I mean, he's that kind of guy. He's the one guitar player. And so when he steps forward into a solo, completely different way of doing things, his band shifts and moves into that sonic space and make sure it's filled. So that it still sounds like they've got a rhythm. And when he goes out of that solo thing and he's singing, he knows he takes his guitar back.
Mhm.
And good players, and you're one of them, know how to go back and forth and make that shift between being in front
I,
and being
I
behind.
I'm still learning it because like the high school band that I was in for a while, and then of course I had that period where I didn't do anything for a really long time. Um, I never learned sonic space. I didn't learn that until I started sitting in with. There's a local cover band that I'm friends with that I would sit in with them every once in a while, and like the first time I got done, that the because they're older guys. They're your age or older. One of the guy the singer and band leader comes up to me. He goes, you are so good at doing this, but he said, man, you suck at rhythm. and and he's like
At least
he's
he was
like
honest.
he's like next time you come, he's like just lay back. He's like when vocals are going on, he's like doing these other things. He's like, don't try to spice it up. Just lay back and like. So I got some tutelage from doing that because it was like, oh, I'm not supposed because like in my old paradigm, for one thing, it was instrumental rock. So if I wasn't doing that, there wasn't anything going on. Whereas in this situation, it was like very much I was not, I was a soloist and a future performer, but it was like, don't overplay. And actually, when we did that one gig with the piano player, um, in the city at Senor Frogs, I think it was. that's when I realized like I had figured it out at that point because he wasn't ticked off. Uh, so I was like, oh, well, I must be doing something right. And I don't have it completely figured out, but like definitely understand what my role is a lot better now because I'm playing in a covers band and like there's and Kyle didn't have to explain it to me. Like I knew going into that this is the expectation, but it is an experience because when I'm doing my solo stuff, like I could just go off and it doesn't matter. Whereas if and the audience never knows anyway because it's all original music, but um when I'm in, playing the weight, I really have to make sure I'm sticking to the format and not putting solos where Kyle doesn't want them so that the vocals aren't being stomped on. And he's incorporating harmonica in it now too, which makes it even more of a challenge. Because like normally I would just fill in all the solos because we didn't have another soloist. And now it's like, is Kyle taking this one or am I taking this one? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just sprinkle some notes in there that are not really like they're not meant to be featured. And then if he doesn't start playing harmonica, then I take off. It's like I'm just being real careful about how I want this to work. And
yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that the person that I was talking about, I noticed that when they were starting to drift musically, rhythmically, the drummer would smack his snare. And I said at the end of the night, I said, "You notice your drummer was smacking his snare, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I noticed that. I don't know why he did that." I said, "He was trying to get you idiots to come back to where he was."
yeah,
He was saying, "This is
one.
the
This is one.
Get
this is one." Kick him into the pit.
and he goes, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah," and the drummer left. The drummer was so mad because he had to do that so much. I said, "Man, he wasn't happy," and I could tell. And the drummer did. He quit. He quit the band because it was like Pink Floyd was saying, and the band you're in starts playing different tunes. I mean, the rhythm, the lead guitar player was playing his own way, and my friend, I really like him, but I said to him, I was very straightforward. I said, "Look, you're not playing solo, and you have a tendency to oversing. So it's not it's that's it. You don't get to sing the extra syllables, and you don't get more time, and you don't get to pull and ebb and push. You don't get that much ebb and push. Not when you're in a band. You only have a certain amount of space that you can move in."
Right.
And I said, when your drummer's telling you to come back to him, he means come back to him. He doesn't mean. And the bass player was, I don't know what the hell he was doing. So the whole thing was a cacophony. I tried to tell him, I said, but I had told him before. I said, you've got to learn how to sing in the pocket. Singing in the pocket is just as important. And I want to move that. I want to segue to another gear thing before we leave.
Yeah.
It's got to do with singing. So we have, as musicians and fans of music, a million times over said, sick and tired of fakery. And one of those fakeries is singers who use pitch correction, right?
I mean, I think I'm going to have a different take on this, but go ahead.
All right. No, I think your take will be similar, but I'm going to move it to gear, so my take is going to completely leave that. There are people who pitch correct not just vocals, guitar parts, bass parts,
which is harder to do. Which is harder
quantizing.
to do live. Like you can't really pitch correct guitar live. I mean, that's just not
No.
a thing.
Yeah, but in recordings you can, right?
As long as it's not
But
chords.
here's my thing. So I was thinking about the fact that all these guitarists are like, well, that's not the way it was, and that's not the way this was. And I was watching a Murphy Labs thing, and I'm nothing against the Murphy Lab folks. I am a Gibson diehard Gibson lover, true and true.
Obviously.
But yeah, there's one Fender headstock sitting right here.
I was going to embarrass you further, but I figure.
And there's a PRS right there. But actually, there's another Fender headstock. Whoops, the one that went the wrong way. Right there. here's my thing. So when it comes to, it's not just Murphy Labs. This is Fender Custom Shop. This is Shure. This is anybody that does this and that fakes the aging process and fakes the whole wear process, which I don't have any problem with. I need you to. I need people to understand that I believe that you should do whatever the heck you want to do, right? But here's what I'm saying: that everybody's all up in arms about, oh, this is fakery and that's fakery and this is fake. Well, saying that your guitar is a 59 or a 64 or a whatever 32 Martin D18 or whatever, I just find it a little bit disingenuous as well. You know, I understand the worn in neck and I get the worn in feel on the fretboard and I understand this. It's probably the most, look, this part and this part, these are the things that come in contact with that guitar every single play. And of course, your stomach does. Some of us have a little more than others.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm trying. Trying.
I was making fun of myself, but
Oh
okay.
well, I'm just as I'm deprecating as well as anybody else. Self-deprecation is my middle name. But here's the thing, and that's probably why I like Gibsons as much as I do most Gibsons, because of that contoured feel right here. I love that feel. But anyway, because I'm a fatty. No, but the fact is, and this is what where I'm going with that. I get all that. I understand. That's why I haven't bonded with a Telecaster. I can't find a neck that doesn't feel like glue to my hand. You know what I mean? Um, so I get that I would want to sand that neck to within an inch of its life, which is why I want to get a cheap thing, and I'll probably do what you recommended and just get Warmoth parts and put one together because I just don't care about it needing a Fender. It doesn't need to say Fender on the headstock. It can say Woodard Original on the headstock.
It could say nothing.
Yeah, or nothing, exactly. And the fact is, I don't know why, but Gibsons, when I play them, the back of the neck feels fine. And they're both finished. It doesn't make any sense. They're both nitro. It doesn't make any sense. Not to me. I'm not very smart. I don't spray nitro. I don't know. But here's the thing that I do know. I don't understand people who go out of the way to get cracked lacquer and, rusty looking parts and, all this other stuff, paying a ton of money to make it look and feel like 100 years old. I get the feel, don't get the look. And so I'll get to this. And that is that if we're so worried about being, and please don't take the authentic thing and throw me at me with Gibson. I'm talking about being authentic as in being an authentic musician, and being authentic as in I'm a player and I'm playing my instrument. The same people that go, oh man, I love the look of the cracked lacquer and the rusty knob and the the way that the chrome is literally you could buy a set of antiquities. It got me thinking about this when you buy the antiquities. You can buy antiquities and the antiquities already have the lines in them from where the thing. I'm like, that's an extra $30 to get a piece of chrome with lines scratched into them. Seriously? No, you keep that. And that's my point. Those things don't add to the playability of the guitar. They just don't. A rusty looking knob or, those type of things. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But they're the same exact people that I don't care if it's a Fender or Gibson or whatever, that'll look at a minute detail of a brand new one and they'll go, oh, look at that. They missed this spot. They missed a spot. I don't know. I just wanted to vent there. I just don't get it.
All right. So on the side of the pitch correction thing, like I've seen local bands using the TC Helicon Voice Live and things like that, and using pitch correction, and like you can tell when it's on. I mean, let's be real. Like if you're a musician, you pretty much know. But here's the thing. The bands I see using it, they're generally not bands that like are vocal focused. They're more, it's like a bar band where, the guitar player has to sing. And it's like, I really don't want to sing, but I'll do it. So they get the voice live out and muddle through it or whatever, however you want to describe that. I think in those scenarios, I think it's fine. It's when you get into a situation where somebody's passing it off as talent, where it's like, yeah, take for example the singer that plays guitar who's using pitch correction. You know what I mean? Like, if he's not very good at the guitar and then he's using pitch correction, you're kind of like, well, what the hell's going on here? And I've definitely seen that too. So I kind of, when I see people roll out the TC Helicon, like the voice live, when I see it on somebody's board, I'm kind of like, oh, here we go. Like, which is it going to be? But I think that's my preconceived notion I bring to the table. And I think there are definitely like situations where if you're singing a song that's in a high register of your key, like what you can normally sing in your highest registers, you can use it to spruce it up and it's not super noticeable. I've definitely seen situations where people are like, pitch shifting up an octave and stuff. Cause it's like, what the hell are you thinking? But as far as like the relic guitar thing goes, it for me, like I used to think it was all about playability. Like if I was going to buy a relic, it was going to be because it'd be more playable and it would be more comfortable. But as I gotten older, like there is an aesthetic appeal to it, especially if you're getting a guitar like an Anderson, because there aren't any vintage Andersons, right? And if you want a guitar that's like going to stand in for a vintage Fender, and you're buying an Anderson, like it depends on your gig. You know what I mean? Like if you're the blues guy and you come out with a brand new guitar, that's kind of uncool now, right now. And I think that's part of the reason why those guitars exist is because there are certain situations where it's uncool to play a brand new, beautiful looking instrument. And unfortunately, there are enough professionals in this world, not unfortunately, but there are enough professionals in this world who realize like I gotta have the look, that it becomes important.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yep. I just, again, it's not that I'm got anything against it. I certainly don't. I just don't get it. I don't get it because the same people talk about other stuff and they're like, well, there's this minute
Well,
thing.
we
and
talked
it's like,
about it in the last episode before the Anthony Rosano interview. We talked
Yeah.
about how Gibson is a target. And people look at Gibson and they go, it's the boomer brand or whatever. It doesn't represent my generation. And it becomes the target. So even though, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I want relic guitars, but not those. I'm after the vintage thing, but only when it suits me. And
Yep.
I really don't. I mean, so let's go back. Let's talk about the first relics, the first real relic guitars that became popular, and those were probably the 59 fakes. But the first production ones were Fenders, and they were built for, I believe, they were all built based on Keith Richards' Tele. That was the first time that they like did a run of guitars for somebody that was like, he's like, I don't want him to look new. Like, what the hell are you doing? So they beat him up. And that was like, in my mind, that's the proper market for this. Keith is not going to go on stage with a brand new Telecaster. Like, that's not the Keith Richards image. And so that visual aesthetic of that gig is beat up Telecasters. Whereas, like, if you're in an 80s hair metal band, you're not going on stage with a beat up 59 Strat alike, You want a neon pink Kramer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a whole... Steel Panther would never play, a super reliced out, like, 57 Strat. They're going to play an 80s guitar of some sort. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, there are definitely professional situations where that should exist, but I think it's caught on in the mainstream. It's like, well, I can't afford the vintage one, but I can get this knockoff. And the funny part we've already talked about on the show is that the knockoffs are as much as the vintage ones. Like $5,000 for a custom shop like Relic 57 Strat, or not 57, like a 62 or a 63. You can buy a 62 or a 63 for like $7,000 if you look around, if you hunt. And yeah, you might question the pedigree. It might have some replacement parts, but the reality is that's the real deal, right? And you just bought a forgery for $1,000 less? What sense does that make? You know, right. I get it. I mean, I understand it. But there are some people that are like, no, I want an American Standard Strat. I want the modern guitar, but I want it to look like it's been through a war. Because they want all the features and playability. Because people forget, those vintage guitars, they have 7.25-inch radiuses. They have, 6-point vintage bridges. They have, it's like, they're not ideal. Despite what people will tell you, they're not ideal. And in fact, most of the people I know who have owned vintage guitars like that have had these kind of like realization moments where it's like, yeah, it doesn't stay in tune the way it probably should because it doesn't have any of the modern amenities. Or it doesn't have the original Strat bridge on it because that was the one where they got the angles right. And they're not perfect. I mean, people are clamoring, Jim, you know this, for 70 Strats right now. Why? I mean, that's the situation where I'm still like,
why? They weren't good before. I mean, there were a few, but just because it's a 70 Strat does not mean it's good.
No, but but it's like I want to own a piece of history kind of deal. Yeah. And like I can't buy a 60s one. So I'll buy, a 77. And it's like, it's not the same thing. You and I know, like, there's really, this is not, and it's just, I think a lot of it's just chasing the cool, man. I think it's like people trying to, a particular image or a particular attitude about something. I mean, look, we've got, guitar heroes on stage these days that play these kind of like Relic custom shop guitars. John Mayer, several of his famous like Relic guitars, despite the fact that he could afford the real deal and owns the real deal, are custom shop Relics. Why? Probably because there's some modern playing amenities that he likes about them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's okay. And so for the aesthetic thing, like, it's aesthetics. If somebody likes the look of a rusty bridge because they think it looks, I don't know. It's just more power to them. It's like people buying rat rods. When you see rat rods going for as much as, a Honda Civic at your local dealership, a rat rod's going to fall apart and it needs constant attention. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems nuts. But they think the rat rod's cooler. So, more power to them. That's their money. They can do what they want. Maybe it's not sound logic driving that conversation, decision making, but, it is what it is, I guess. I'm not going to fault them. I have kind of gone back and forth on Relics during the time period of this show. I've looked at Relics and been like, I wouldn't mind having a Relic body. I think there are definitely situations where it looks really cool, especially if you get something like a Paisley underneath another color and that kind of thing. Like that's unique. And that's kind of why I'm like, yeah, I get it. I was looking at having MJT do me a Relic, a body. Turns out they can't do what I want, so we're not going to do that. But the fret thing, like I have seen where guitars will have Relic frets with like flat frets and stuff, and I'm like, no, guys, I don't want to play railroad ties, like flat all the way across the board. It's like playing a fretless. No, that's not for me. That's not my thing. I want new frets. Like and that may be part of the conversation process around Relics too. Is if you buy a 57 Strat, right, and the frets are worn down, and you replace them, you just took $1,000 out of the value of your guitar. So, like for those guys, having the custom shop, I can get a 57 that plays good. kind of thing is important. And I'm sure that probably weighs into that some of that decision making process.
I would think.
But like a bridge that's all rusty, I don't get the anything more than aesthetic value there. But I'm sure to some people, like, there's it's got to have rust on it because it holds the saddles in place better. I don't know. I can't pretend to understand all of it. The guitars I play, the guitars I covet, they're not. I mean, other than the 61 Strat or the 62 Strat, like that time period, I don't really covet things that are like expensive. Mike G&L's, like, the same hardware that's on them has been on them since the early 90s, and it's basically the same hardware. So I haven't seen a relic G&L because they were all done with poly, I think. So,
well, all right. So let me ask you this: you went over that. What would be other than a look? What would be the upside of having? Can you think of anything outside of an aesthetic of having cracked nitro, poly, whatever?
are you talking about checking? Well, I would never buy a Gibson Murphy custom shop with checking, because their checking is horrible. It does not look real. It looks like somebody literally took this guy and just went right across the body. And I don't really particularly like the way the Fender Custom Shop does it either. I think the only way to get that for real is to take a guitar, basically put it in a cold environment, and then bring it into a warm environment and do it multiple times. I think the checking thing is like badge of honor. It's tiger stripes. That's the way people look at it. This guitar's been through hell. Like, that's why people like checking. It's an aesthetic. It is a purely aesthetic thing. There's nothing about checking that makes it functionally better. It doesn't help the body breathe. If anything, it allows moisture into the body, which would be a real problem. And I think it's more or less just people coveting the idea that, like, most of the old guitars checked. And it is definitely a way to tell if your guitar is nitro, because poly won't check. If you ever see a poly relic with checking, they're done with a razor blade and they look ridiculous.
Yeah.
They look like Gibson Custom Shop did them. The problem with Gibson Custom Shop is they cut too deep. Like, if you're gonna check with the razor blade, it can be done. Fender does it and it's passable. But, like, if you've ever played an actual vintage guitar with checking all over it, it's different. It's not the same as, like, hey, I'm gonna cut it with a razor blade. If you've ever cut anything with a razor blade, it goes into the wood, it goes through the finish, and that's sort of what the Gibsons look like, the ones that I've seen anyway. And you can see a bunch of those on Trogley's channel. He talks about it all the time, but
yep,
I've seen him in person too. In fact, I played an SG Standard. Gosh, I don't know what reissue it was, but it was a Gibson Custom Shop at Chicago Music Exchange that was checked all to hell, and it looked hilariously bad. And they wanted like $6,000, I think, for that guitar. 5,000, 6,000. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Because then I looked and there's a Nash, like a Nash blue Stratocaster, like Placid Blue, and it was gorgeous, and it looked right. I still a Nash. Obviously, Nashes are not vintage, but it looked right at least. The other company that gets them right, and I'm gonna probably catch hell from some of the people at Good Time on this, but Friedman, the Grover Jacksons that Friedman is putting out under their name, which, by the way, Grover Jackson's apparently retiring, I hear. So if you want a Grover Jackson guitar, get a Friedman now. Their checking looks great, and their wear pattern is consistent with where you're going to wear them, and they're very, very comfortable guitars. But the checking is done tastefully. It is not done with a giant razor blade, and it looks realistic. And it's not so but it's all about the look. It is not about it is not about any sort of functional benefit. So, for what it's worth, the checking thing is strange. I've never understood the obsession with that. Because not all vintage guitars are checked either. But I will say there are probably more checked vintage guitars than there are not checked vintage guitars. If you've ever dabbled with 60s Gibsons and stuff. All of the vintage Gibsons I've played have been pretty well, like at least around the headstock or something. There's some area where it got exposed to some element at some point in its lifetime. And I've heard tales of Gibsons getting checked because I don't think the modern ones do it because they have a elastomer in the finish along with the nitro. But the vintage ones at least used to be able to like even if you put them in a case, it's like, oh well, the case holds heat, right? Like it's supposed to help them. I've heard you can get them checked in the case while you're carrying them around in the cold. So
God, the case can only hold so much heat. It doesn't generate heat. That's like saying that your house would never get cold.
Well, I'm saying like just going from the car to the house, like get after a gig, come from the warm car into the cold house and crossing the driveway. Like people have reported that their vintage Gibsons checked that way. Like I've heard that before where people are like, yeah, it's possible. It just stacks up over time. And like you get a tiny little, microscopic thing that eventually grows. Kind of like a pothole. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on vintage guitars. I will freely admit my opinions do not reflect the opinions of experts. I will say that I have played quite a few, probably more than people that live in rural areas because I've had access to them in the city. But I will say that I am not an expert. We have had experts on the show. We've had people that have legitimate vintage collections with plenty of pieces. Who could comment on that a little bit more, but I don't think there's any functional benefit to having checking. I think you're absolutely right on that. I think by asking the question, you implied that there's no functional reason for it, and there isn't one.
Right. I can't see it. Not that there's anything. Again, you do what you want to do. You want to put a sticker on it.
The sticker thing kind of bothers me. Nick Bonger's just got a 70s Les Paul Custom with a sticker on it. And it's a Kiss sticker. And it's hilarious. Because it covers it's a bumper sticker. It covers half the guitar, right? And somebody made the comment why don't you pull that off? And he's like, because it'll be all discolored underneath anyway. And it's funny because, Kiss plays in a Kiss cover band. So it's why would he pull it off? I mean, it kind of fits, right? I mean, who cares?
Yeah, because if there's ever anybody that's going to play a guitar with the bumper sticker of their own band on it, it's Kiss.
Yeah, come on. They would definitely do that.
Now, was it on the back of the guitar?
No, it's on the front.
Yeah, there you go.
It's above the pickups.
Loud and proud.
Yeah, it's above the pickups, right in the. And I told him, so I actually commented. I said, "Hell, pull it off. Who cares if it's discolored? It's a guitar from the 70s. It's not gonna be pristine and perfect. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised that the sticker wasn't airtight, and so underneath may be discolored because actually a lot of the discoloration on white Les Paul, because I think it's white. I don't know. It might be black, but I think a lot of the discoloration, at least on white Les Paul Customs, is actually from cigarette smoke, not from UV radiation.
Right.
So, what it's worth. I mean, you can just peel that sticker off probably, and it's still going to be pretty damn yellow and creamy underneath there.
Yep.
I wouldn't bat an eye in pulling the sticker off. I wouldn't give a shit. As long as the guitar plays good. And I believe that's a second Les Paul Custom. So he's selling his other Les Pauls. He's got I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want somebody else to buy it. Sorry, Nick. I'm not plugging that one because I would like to have that guitar, but I do not have the money you're asking for it right now. So that's not going to happen. I will not help you sell it. If you would like to sell it to someone, that's fine, but I'm not going to hook up the buyer because I want that to go into my hands at some point. I hope he doesn't sell it. I hope he sits on it for a while, and then I go over to his place, and it's there, and I'm like, what do you want for it? Let's go to an ATM. That kind of thing. Let's make a deal. It's a 97 Les Paul Custom Plus. No, Les Paul Classic Plus. Les Paul Standard Plus. It's Plus model,
Something like that.
which is just a nicer top. Honestly,
Yeah,
don't care about
that's
the
exactly all it is.
Yeah, I don't
That's all
care
it
about
ever
the
is with
I don't
those.
care about the Plus. And it does have a nice top on it, but the guitar is just freaking great. It plays so damn good.
Is he thinking
and-
about selling it?
Yeah, it's listed. I'm like, I already reached
No.
out to him. Like, how much do you want for it? And I can't afford it. So, I mean, if I could afford it, I would. My mom, we were talking about it. My mom goes, "Why didn't you buy it?" And I said, "Because I'm an idiot.
I'll ask you the same question. Why
'Cause
haven't
I'm
you
an
bought it
idiot.
yet?
Because I'm an idiot. That's why.
Just like you asked me with that one. Why haven't you bought it yet?
Because
Sell that other one.
Listen.
Get that one.
listen,
Well,
I
you
know
are
it-
selling one, right? You're selling your Kiesel.
maybe.
Maybe.
The one I'm selling is for sure is the GNL Legacy, the red Legacy
Okay.
that I have. That was the pickup mule we bought, and that's going. The Kiesel probably is going. And
Okay.
if I sold the Kiesel, I'd need to make up about $400 or $500. So
Okay.
no, probably a little bit more than that. But reality is like, I'm not in a position where I can say I need to buy a Les Paul, and that's part of the issue. Like, I don't really know what I want to buy yet, and I'm afraid that even though I know the guitar is great, like I'll wind up not jiving with the Les Paul side of it. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's where I'm really conflicted. I wish I had the kind of disposable income where I could be like, $2,200 ain't so bad. Or I forget what he was selling it for, but like $2,400 for standard right now. So I keep saying $2,200, but you reach out to Nick, he'll give you a price. But don't buy it. Because I'll be mad. I'll be mad and I'll feel bad. You'll make me feel bad, and nobody wants to make me feel bad, right? No, probably everybody's like, people are like, I'm sure there's some show listener out there right now. He's good as well. I was like, how much do I have to pay? Like, more power
I have
to
to
you.
laugh. Yeah, I have to laugh because a person made the mistake of showing me a Facebook listing locally. And you know how I am. I don't wait.
Yeah,
I don't
you're like
wait.
looking at it, you're like, you know what? The hell with this. Like, you don't want that? Okay, I'll see you in an hour. Where are you going? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Don't you worry about it.
I'll tell you when I get back. I've never been a shark like that. Like, I've never even. It's like, I see stuff on Facebook. I don't think I've ever bought a guitar on like Facebook or Craigslist where it's like, oh, I saw it and I'm like, oh, I gotta have that. I gotta go get it right now. I have done that in guitar stores before, where I've gone home and I've been like, well, we gotta get some stuff together because I gotta trade some shit in. But like, I've never done that in a situation where, you know, I was racing other people.
Right.
Anyway,
I mean,
we're at an hour.
well,
We're at 2 hours, man. Let's
we're at
call it.
hours.
I've been David,
I've been Jim.
and tonight we've been Practical Guitarists.
Cue the music.